week in the trading world. I'm really looking forward to getting updated today and seeing what you think is going on with the fundamentals this week. Alexis.
All right, so that's I had an interesting week, and I think some of my biases have kind of shifted a little bit, and let me share why. Okay, so I'm going to share screen, and let's look at one of my favorite charts, the Aussie and the China renminbi. So I think last week I mentioned that that if the RMB breaks through the upper horizontal level, we should see the Aussie follow suit, right? But I think what happened was it didn't go through, and the moment that wall was hit, a very clear weakening of the Aussie happened. So I think it's really interesting because it is really if RMB doesn't really move, I think the Aussie kind of finds it hard to move as well. So again, you can see the renminbi over here is really hitting a wall, and the question is this a good buying opportunity for the Aussie dollar? So when we kind of look at the Australian dollar on its own, right? And I'm going to look at the Aussie USD over here. All right. The question is, it has kind of gone down to, I wouldn't say it's testing a horizontal level here. I think there's a little bit more downside to go through this, but maybe look out for buying opportunities in the next couple of weeks. All right. Because I think China is still on its road to recovery. I mean, it's very focused on bilateral or multilateral growth. All right, according to I think President Xi's speeches last week on the Bloomberg forums, that they are really focused on growing together as a world economy. So we'll see whether it does that or not. And I think something interesting that really came up was when Gina Raimondo, the Secretary of Commerce for the US, came in and started talking. And I think she's this whole week she's doing a Indo-Asia tour. So she's visited Japan, she's come down to Singapore, and within 48 hours she's off to Malaysia, and she's going through her tour. So I think they are really focused on bringing trade up again. So one of the places that they dropped out of when Trump was in power was this. I'm going to show you here. This was done. I think it's too long for me to read out. So this CPTPP, right? So I think when Trump was in power, they kind of dropped out of this agreement. All right. So there was a lot of talks on whether or not the US will come back into some kind of trade agreement, and currently the countries involved are more of the Asia Pacific countries. So the question posted was really, is she interested in coming back to that? Now, I can see that she's kind of considering this question very seriously. The answer is no, of course. They are not going to be coming into the CPTPP, in the near future. But what she has been focusing on is the improvement of trade relations between the Indo-Asian countries, which is Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, basically the Asian countries, right? And the concern is about supply chain. So I think due to the pandemic, there was a realization that the US was not able to produce certain products, and semiconductors is one of them. So they were not able to produce enough conductor materials, and there was a gap where a lot of people are still in search of semiconductors, right? There is still a shortage, and and it has brought concern to the US that yes, they do want to be a bit more self-sufficient, so they want a bit more domestic supply, but they are also wanting to create good trade relations with their what they call their friend countries, so that they can have friendly trade as well. So with that in mind, it brings on to the mind the other questions of what is Biden's stance. And I think based on what she has shared, Biden's stance is very pro relations. I mean, despite what the media is saying, they are really working hard to kind of increase jobs. So it's a bit of a coinciding with the green movement. Again, I think nobody can ignore the green movement. The last month, there was talks all over the world about the COP26, about green energy, about the concerns about the environment. So the US's concern, at least based on the Secretary of Commerce, she's saying that okay, they do recognize the fact that renewables are important, but they also want to do it while providing and creating opportunity for new jobs. So that is really interesting, because what they are focusing on now is really research and development into kind of getting The only way to kind of improve environmental factors is via research and development. So they're spending a lot of money, to get this energy sector changed into a clean way. And to do that as well, they also have to kind of focus on providing jobs. For example, the coal miners. If you were to cut coal from the energy sector, you have to kind of provide jobs for the states that that have huge focus on coal as part of their jobs. So it's really, really interesting to kind of see where they're getting it. I think a bit of urgency is kind of seen. They are trying to improve the economy and they're working really hard to do it. So previously, I was talking about debt, right? And thinking that, okay, there might be a weakening of the US dollar because unless they solve the debt problem, it's going to be a big question mark on whether or not the US dollar will sustain. But after watching the whole week's worth of talks and discussions, I think the US dollar is going to be pretty flat for a while. And I think a bit of range trading is going to come into play because while the government is actually really, really strongly trying their best to kind of fix the problems, unfortunately, they're not going to start on debt first. They are focusing a lot on R&D, on renewable energy, as well as, most importantly, providing jobs, right? Providing jobs for their people. So I think unemployment is something they're battling right now very, very seriously. And if they kind of can transition the job market amidst all their plans, I think the US dollar does have legwork. All right. So it's going to be, for me, it's when I look at the charts, and let's pull back to the charts, I think it's going to be a big range trading moment. We already had a very nice bullish rally on a lot of the dollar pairs. All right. I don't think the dollar will really fly very high, but what I do think is the dollar will trade positively, and we'll look for buying opportunities every time it does a pullback. All right, because I think Biden is really working hard. I mean, despite his methods, right, he is really working hard into trying to improve the economy for the people. I think that's one of the most important things we have to look at for governments, whether or not what are they trying to improve. So if they're trying to improve jobs, if they're trying to improve, replace jobs for people who are losing jobs, I think one thing to look at is the job market, the unemployment figures that are coming up, and to see whether this really sustains. Because if it does sustain, then yes, there is an opportunity. There is an opportunity over there to find all these buying opportunities whenever the US pulls back, right? So we have a couple of US dollar pairs right now. I think I'm looking for opportunities of literally buying opportunities, but be a bit cautious. Like I said, I think the US dollar is going to range trade for quite a while. We are entering the end of the year already. So I'm going to be very cautious about buying the USD, but also the moment I find pullbacks hitting certain horizontal levels, I think we are going to range trade the USD for the next couple of months. So unfortunately, range trading is not a favorite, I guess, of trend traders, but it is kind of the story over here that a big range is going to be seen in the USD as as people try to kind of position themselves around the US dollar. So other than that, I think on the Aussie dollar, I'm also looking for buying opportunities. All right, but again, it takes a while for this to set up. And again, it's based off the positive China economy. All right, and I would see the Aussie dollar softening for the next week or so as it comes off, as it sells off and touches certain horizontal levels. But overall, on the medium time frame, I am looking for buying opportunities as well. So maybe in a week or two, I'm not sure, but definitely a little bit more softness expected. So my focuses next week will be a little bit more on buying opportunities for the Aussie, the US, and I think the pound. The pound, I'm still waiting for it to move. There's some of the pound pairs has already started off its move. Pound Swiss has already had 3 buying days with a bit of retracement. So again, we'll see whether this sustains as well. But I think the pound opportunity will come a little bit faster than the Aussie and the USD. So my focus on the next week is still pound focus, but still one eye on the Aussie and on the US to see whether it can catch up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So we'll see how that works. But bearing in mind, we're into the last 2 months of trading, we might get a little bit slower on the currency front. But so let's see where it goes over here. Over to you, Paul.
Cheers, Alexis. Thank you very much. Looking forward to catching up with you this week about what you did last week.